am Orapotist Maximus. To the red, to the brown, to the yellow, to the white, to the black, to the Republicans, to the Democrats, to the saints, to the sinners, to the losers, to the winners, to the strong, to the weak, to the bold, to the meek, to the haters, to the naysayers, to the living, to the late, to the unsung, to the great, to the seers, to the moors, to the rich, to the poor. In the name of the Most High God, the Beneficent, the Merciful, and in the name of all the strong black freedom fighters, I come to you today as a modern day black nationalist, poet, freedom fighter, fighting for the freedom, the justice, the equality of our people. Yes, I'm here today, but not as some prophet, no sage, no rabbi, no priest, but a poet, a voice, articulating the hurt and the pain and the suffering masses of our people who are not moving forward. A poet. But not just any poet, but one who would rise to the call of service. The beckoning of a generation. Yet I'm here today as a servant of an awesome God and a servant of an awesome people. The God who was our God before we were brought here to the hills and hills of North America. The one of whom it was prophesied in the book of Exodus to come and to deliver his people, if indeed we represent the people and the prophetic fulfillment of Scripture, who would be in bondage for over 400 years, whom afterwards God would come to deliver. Yet brought here to America on the belly of slave ships, ships filled with dung and disease. They packed us in like sardines, traded us for mere sugar cane and coffee beans. The despised and rejected. Our people, robbed of our names, robbed of our language, robbed of our history, robbed of our culture, our folkways, our mores, our religion. Look at us. We have adopted the religion of our slave masters, and the proof of that we have bowed down to worship the image of a lily white Jesus, even up until today, Yet the scriptures clearly say of this Jesus that his skin would be like fine brass burnt in an oven, whose head and hair would be like lamb's wool, not some impostor, pale-faced, blue-eyed, stringy, blonde hair, pasteurized, homogenized white Jesus of Hollywood. So listen up, all you listeners tonight. I've come to take no prisoners. I come in the spirit of that strong black Muslim minister, Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik, El Shabazz, not some foot-shuffling, boot-licking, pacifist preaching, turn a non-violent cheek, modern-day Uncle Tom, escapist preacher with some pie in the sky somewhere in the sweet, by and by, lullaby preachers, rocking our people to sleep. So I write this poetry to wake us up. I am Orapotist Maximus. I am the poet laureate the chief spokesperson and founder of Jonah. Jonah is an acronym for the Judge of Nations Advocacy Headquarters, aka the Jonah Project, aka the Jonah Movement. The Jonah Project, the Jonah Movement, is a test and testament to the current state of the hearts and minds of white America. Its simple objective is to give white America the opportunity to be on the right side of history, to reconcile the present with the past, to reconcile the harsh history of African American chattel slavery in this country and its present-day ramifications and repercussions on black life. Also, to focus on the plight and disintegration, or I like to call it the disintegration, of the Native Americans, the indigenous people of this continent. In short, my goal is to build a coalition of all people striving for the survival of diverse groups. What if we can build a coalition of all people, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, striving for the survival of diverse groups? As a moral leader, my job is to advocate and bring awareness to what I feel to be God's judgment on America and what she must do to be saved, if indeed she can be saved at all. The Jonah Project, the Jonah Movement, is perhaps the last-ditch effort, perhaps the last mass movement in America for the reconciliation of the races. Its aim is to secure the resources of this nation so that so-called minority groups can survive and thrive as independent yet interdependent people. I say interdependent because in some shape, form, or fashion, we are all dependent upon one another. But if my memory serves me correctly, I believe it was the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. who said, and I quote, We are all caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, that we're tied in a single garment of destiny, and whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. For some strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. The rich man can never be what he ought to be until the poor man is what he ought to be. And I would like to go on to say that white America can never be what it ought to be until black, brown, red, yellow America is what it ought to be. I believe that it is impossible, perhaps even improbable, to extricate the presence of so-called minority groups from the fabric of America without destroying it. America, white America, you would be like a wise and prudent doctor who deems it too dangerous to operate, to extricate, for the extrication may prove fatal. As an African American man, this is no substitute for black nationalism. For you see, I am for black nationalism as a social and political movement, advocating the separation of blacks and whites. I feel that the separation of blacks and whites is not an ideal solution, but it's perhaps the only realistic solution. I'm a realist. I stopped believing in Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy a long time ago. I'm a realist. America was created by white people, for white people. White America has never been interested in an equal, multiracial society. I've come to the conclusion that she is perhaps too greedy to share the wealth of her nation. Malcolm X, El Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, nearing the end of his mortal life, had a major change of heart in his ideological understanding of race relations in America as it should be. He felt that there could be a brotherhood of races under the right and proper circumstances. He felt that his demonization, or I would like to call it the devilization, of the entire white race was logically fallacious. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the leader of the Black Muslim movement, in the Nation of Islam, which happens to be the underpinning of my philosophical and theological base, beliefs based in history, that the white man in America is a damnable devil incapable of being reformed, that the white man in America is not a devil, but the devil, that the devil is not a figurative man in the center of the earth with the red pitchfork wearing red tights, but that the white man in America is the devil incarnate. But as many who grow in their beliefs, I use the minister Louis Farrakhan himself as an example, have moved to a moderate and inclusive belief system. I believe that we can find every member of the human family, black, brown, red, yellow, and white, represented in the Nation of Islam. All of humanity has been attracted to the message of Muhammad. Hence, we're back to black nationalism in my belief in the necessity of the separation of races if the Jonah Project fails and we're left with no other alternative. If my memory serves correctly, I believe it was the preamble of the Constitution that says, and I quote, "When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for a people to dissolve the political bands that connect them to one another, and to assume amongst the powers of the earth the separate and equal station, to which the laws of nature and nature's God, to declare the causes which compel them to the separation." As an African American, I am offended when whites suggest that we should be the ones to leave this continent as a result of this dilemma. I ask the question, why should we, African Americans who built this so-called New World, should have to forsake and leave a New World behind? I ask the question, why should the Native Americans, the indigenous people of this continent, should only live in the hearts and minds of Americans as an afterthought, as if they were no longer worthy of reclaiming their place in the sun, but to be deemed a conquered people and noble savages? What if good whites, if the term itself is not an oxymoron and contradiction in terms, if given the opportunity to prove that all whites is too a fallacious concept? I am not naive. I am a student of history. I possess the knowledge that the white man in America has been nothing but a devil in the grand scheme of race relations in America. Let me say that again, that the white man in America has been nothing but a devil in the grand scheme of race relations in America. Let's look at it. Slavery, Civil War, segregation, subjugation, discrimination, failed integration, police brutality, massive incarceration, gentrification. Let's look at it. America, white America, you have a history of being kidnappers, rapists, racists, robbers, liars, lynchers, intimidators, and murderers. I can go on and on down the list. You fit the description of a true terrorist, but you're nothing but a band of punks, a band of bums, cowards, hiding behind masks, riding horses, brandishing rifles and carrying torches. You're no good, peckerwood, redneck, pot-belly, gun-toting, tobacco-chewing and smoking, carrying rifles in your laps. You look stupid wearing those silly pointed dunce caps. Rebel rousers, burning down poor black people's houses, seething haters, masqueraders, mischief makers, no good bastards, fiendish laughers, backslashers, white crackers, Johnny-come-lately overall wearing Neanderthal. In spite of the passing of time, you continue to commit your heinous crimes. You try to instill our hearts with fear, the militarization of America, the infamous riot gear, and now you unleash upon black folk your modern-day weapons, your bag of tricks, police sticks, police dogs, guns with lasers, wands, batons, pepper spray, high-voltage electrical tasers. You're the same people, you just go by different names, and killing black folk is still fair game. But what did we ever do to whites? What did we ever do to whites, except to be black as the darkest night? Now we're experiencing one of the greatest displacement of black folk this nation's ever seen. And still, white America, you won't come clean. And when we talk of reparations, you say go figure. I don't owe nothing to some damn nigger. So that begs the question, can the devil be reformed? The Jonah Project, the Jonah Movement seeks to put this issue to rest once and for all. Are white people in America, like the wicked city of Nineveh, deserving a final opportunity to make right the wrongs of past generations? I feel that every so-called new generation should be afforded that opportunity to make right the wrongs of past generations. Miracle, white America, I'm not your judge. If my memory serves me correctly, I